empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? Worst 6 seconds, put 8 point beat, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go.
Welcome to the Scoop World Order. It is the Uncomfortable Truth Edition. This is a great column that Nevadabuck runs every Sunday on BuckeyeScoop.com. Kind of initial reaction piece. It always really compelling stuff, really good stuff. One of our biggest items that we always put on our site. So I'm super excited about this. So we're going to turn it into a podcast and then break down a little bit of the nifty stuff that Ryan Day was doing against Toledo's defense. Some stuff I think you guys are really going to like. We might not have noticed while you're watching the game in real time, but when you really break it down, he was really in his bag, as the kids say. He was really doing some crazy stuff. It's great to see. I'm really excited about it, and it's going to be really tough for Wisconsin to get ready for it, especially with the breaking news that they have 3 defensive backs out versus the Buckeyes. So good luck to them. With that being said, as always, we are thankful and grateful for you guys. You guys have been killing it. Our podcasts are growing like crazy. Our YouTube is growing like crazy. Thank you for the likes. Please leave a like on this content if you enjoy it. We really crank it hard for you guys every day to make sure you guys have some great Ohio State football content up and ready to go. Click that subscribe button. Comment. Do you agree with any of the parts of the Uncomfortable Truths? I think that this is always a really compelling thing. There's some really good stuff in here. I'm going to get Nevada, but maybe give me one of your uncomfortable truths that you believe about the 2022 Buckeyes. You know, and it doesn't have to be a bad thing. It could be a comparison thing. You'll see what we're talking about once we get into this, but appreciate you guys as always. With that being said, I'm going to bring in my good friend, Nevadabuck. Nevada, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great. Getting excited. Wisconsin week's exciting. The news about the Wisconsin defensive backs being out is always exciting. I'm expecting a big effort by Ohio State. You know, under the lights, another night game. And this is always fun. When you start getting to the meat of the schedules, it starts getting real. And, you know, you can't take anything for granted, but I think Ohio State's poised for a huge effort this week, and I can't wait for the game.
Yeah, Nevada, you've been around for a long time. You've seen a lot of these huge night games. You are a humongous fan of the night games. I think that obviously maybe the biggest benefit to the night game other than the environment is the ability to get big-time out-of-state recruits into the Horseshoe. We have Keon Keeley coming up on an unofficial visit. He's paying out of his own pocket to come up from Tampa to watch Ohio State. If this is a noon game, this is probably not possible, or it would be a very, very tight window if he took a very early flight on Saturday. But with it being a night game, he can take, kind of an early morning flight to mid-afternoon flight, get up here in time for the game, visit with Larry Johnson a little bit. Talk about the benefit to the night game and being able to get a kid like Keon Keeley out of Tampa up here for one last look at Ohio State before he makes his decision on signing day.
Yeah, I think it just makes so much sense, you know, and I know that I'll say this, and the traditionalists will probably go crazy, and probably the ex-players such as yourself will go crazy, but I'd play every game at night if I could. And, you know, playing under the lights, playing with the national television audience, the largest type of eyeballs possible on the game, and then obviously the recruiting benefits. The recruiting benefits being able to get kids from the West Coast, kids being able to get from the South. They can come up day of game, still see the game, get back home on Sunday, and to get back into their routine. I just think it's an enormous benefit, and the atmosphere of a 3:30 game is so much better than a noon game, and the atmosphere of an 8 p.m. game is so much better than a 3:30 game. It's just exponentially better. It's exponentially more exciting. Everything about it is off the hook great. I know it's a pain to get home. I know it's dark. I know there's not a lot of restaurants open after the games, but pack a sandwich, eat at the stadium, do whatever you got to do. But if I was czar for a day, I'd make every Ohio State game a night game and just call it good and see where it took us.
Yeah, I mean, for recruiting, there's no doubt that night games are it's just part of the schedule. It's the easiest game for kids to get to. Even kids in Ohio, I remember when I was playing high school football in Ohio and we'd have a noon game, I wouldn't get down there till the middle of the second quarter because most good programs, you watch film the next day, you got to work out the next day, and if you're at a real program, they're not going to let you skip film to go watch a college football game. Like I'm not gonna. So my high school coach, Keith Wakefield, was not going to let me get out of films or workouts early so I could go watch Ohio State beat up Kent State at noon in the Horseshoe. Like that's not how it works. So yeah, I think night games are exciting. I think that getting a kid up, like Keon up from Tampa. There's a couple of direct flights today right from Tampa right into Columbus. Super easy to get to. I think it's really good. And now that I'm out of it and I'm a former player and stuff, I don't mind the night games. They're great. I get home in time, and I don't get to do a post game show on the Scoop as much, but I'm excited about it. So with that being said, we're going to dive into Nevadabuck's 7 uncomfortable truths about the Toledo game. This is something that you do every week. You've been doing this for 20 years. It's a really big thread. People love it. It gets a ton of views. Your first uncomfortable truth is one that I actually completely agree with. Cade Stover is a better player than Jeremy Ruckert. Discuss that and what has drawn you to that conclusion 3 games into the 2022 season.
Well, I just think that Cade just did not come in with the accolades, and this happens to a lot of players. A lot of players. And look at Steel Chambers. Steel Chambers came to Ohio State as a running back, got moved around a bit, ended up as a linebacker, and now it's almost kind of a surprise. His success is kind of discounted a little bit because the expectations weren't there. And I'd say the same thing with Cade. Cade came in as primarily a defensive player, known as a tough guy. Not really, they didn't really talk about him much as a tight end, although we talked about him a little bit as a tight end. But I think that sometimes kids come in with expectations. Maybe he doesn't look the part. He's not 6'6" like Gronkowski. He's a smaller guy. Nothing about him screams classic tight end, but he's all that. We've talked about it before on other podcasts, but I think he's as good a tight end as we've had in a very, very long time. And I think he's better than Jeremy Ruckert, which is not a bang at Ruckert, who I thought was fantastic. But I think the point is, Cade is way better than people think he is. Cade is going to be a terrific player here. Cade is actually having plays and other things drawn up for him right now. And Cade could be in for some offseason accolades, and I don't think anybody would have expected that. And that's uncomfortable truth number 1 post Toledo game.
Yeah, and I agree. I think Cade, and again, it might not be our opinion, or it might be our opinion, but when you really study the film of the Toledo game, they're drawing stuff up for him. There's stuff where there's a progression. He'll be out blocking for a swing pass, and the next time he'll run the same motion, and he'll go out there and fake the block, and they throw him a nice little pass where he's wide open. And again, nobody goes into the Ohio State game thinking, man, we have to stop Cade Stover. They're thinking, we got to stop Marvin, we got to start Jackson, Trey Henderson, Emeka. Cade is maybe 5th or 6th after Mayan Williams and whoever else we roll out there. So he can really eat because nobody really game plans against him. He's not like Michael Mayer at Notre Dame where everyone's like, we got to stop the tight end. And this guy's, I think he's an outstanding player. I think he's an NFL player. I think, I played in the NFL with guys that are just like Cade Stover in their last 10 years, and they block and they play special teams and they're on kickoff return and they'll catch 25 balls a year, and they make a great living doing that. And I think there's no reason why Cade can't do that. Your second uncomfortable truth is talking about the captains, kind of the selection of the captains under Ryan Day. We've had guys that are juniors that didn't repeat as seniors. We've had guys that don't really play that are captains. Talk a little bit about that and why that is one of your uncomfortable truths.
Well, I think that our captain selection right now is kind of a mess. And, I give Ryan Day a lot of credit for a lot of things going on at Ohio State. And that's why this is kind of an uncomfortable truth segment, because some of the things are going to be positive, some of the things aren't going to be so positive. I don't like the way we choose captains. I think as you mentioned, to have kids chosen as a captain as a junior year that don't repeat as seniors is almost unprecedented at Ohio State. And then this year we have a lot of kids that don't play or play sparingly or not at all. And I know that Ryan wanted to place a premium on toughness this year. He seemed to like he handpicked a lot of tough kids to be the captains. But I personally think that players have to play, captains have to play, captains have to lead not only off the field but on the field. And I just think our captain selection is kind of a mess. Is it affecting this team? No, the team seems to be a tight team. But, when things are going well, everybody's tight and everybody's there. But I don't like the way that Ryan Day has selected captain since he's been here. And I think this year is kind of an exhibit A of just a wonky selection process for the captains.
Yeah, and I completely agree. I think it's something it's strange. And I was a captain. I was voted a captain my senior in 07. And I was on a very, very small senior class. We might have had, I think, 11 guys in my entire senior class. We had guys that didn't pan out. We had a lot of guys that went early. Dante Whitner, Ashton Yabodi, Anthony Gonzalez, Ted Ginn, those guys, Antonio Pittman, those guys all would have been seniors with me as 4th or 5th year guys. They were all gone. I had more returning starts than the rest of my class combined, which is something that's very strange. But I think that, so Trussell kind of did the unprecedented thing and made a junior captain. He made James Laurinaitis, who was a returning All-American, a 3-time All-American, a junior captain. That was a big deal. There hadn't been many junior captains, and so that was a really big deal. And now it's to the point now with the amount of early entrants and the amount of attrition and transfer portal that we've had sophomores. We had JT and Tough Borland both be sophomore captains, which is, again, I think that's really hard on the kids, because when you're that young, I don't know how you can expect a sophomore to lead a bunch of seniors if you have a decent senior class. But I think it's really hard on some of these kids that have been voted captains that don't play, or they play in garbage time, and they don't have a set role where they're not on special teams, and they're not they just kind of do whatever. But I think you have to play, because being a captain is a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because it's obviously a great honor to be voted captain at Ohio State. Some people would say it's the greatest honor. But I also, there's a great burden that comes with that, where you have to be the guy that everybody's going to look at when things are going bad and when things aren't good. It's not just walk out and win the coin toss. It's like, no, like when stuff's hitting the fan and you're losing to Illinois at home and you got to rally the troops to play Michigan next week, you have to be the guy that sets the tone and sets the example. And it's tough. Like, I mean, you got to be the guy that, you got to be winning all the sprints, and you got to be the best guy in the weight room, and you got to be the best guy in the classroom, and you got to have string together great practices and great game performances. Because the one thing I do know, if you're a captain, or if you're a player that's not a captain, if you have a captain out there and he's not performing and he's not playing well, then it really it's hard to follow that guy. You want your captains to be the pace setters, the guys that are the best players on the team. And I felt that pressure every single week, that I have to go out and I better be ready to rock and I better be ready to perform. Because if you're out there stinking it up and you're giving up sacks and missing blocks and whatever, no one's going to follow you. It doesn't matter how eloquent your speeches are. And, it's not like the movies. You have to be out there balling. You got to be like Aaron Rodgers last night. Aaron Rodgers, best player on the field every time he steps on the field. So people are going to listen when that guy talks, because he's that good. If Aaron Rodgers was the backup quarterback and he never got in the game and they voted him captain, or he was named captain, no one's really going to listen to him. This is part of the gig. Number 3 on your uncomfortable truths, Dallin Hayden is fine, but you think that probably more has to do with the opponent, the scheme, the fantastic offensive line play. What are your thoughts on Dallin Hayden, his future, and will he ever be a top drawer guy who can carry the load at Ohio State?
I think Dallin's fine. And again, any kid that comes in here and rushes for 100 yards at Ohio State is terrific. Having said that, I think if Evan Pryor was in that spot, last week, I think Evan would have gone for 200 yards. And, I think, I just seen a lot of the Dallin Hayden hype after the game. I think he's a good player. I think he's fine. I think any of the running backs would have rumbled, and they all did rumble, for big yards against Toledo. And I think he's going to need some time to develop into kind of a bell cow back. I think he's been good in practice. And again, I don't want this to turn into like a Dallin Hayden diss thing, because that's not the point. But the point of my uncomfortable truth on this one was, hey, let's just keep it in perspective. It was Toledo, and the holes were gigantic. I mean, anybody who was running with velocity was going to get yards last week, because the offensive line was doing a great job. Ryan Day was calling a great game. Ryan Wilson and Justin Fry had the guys going. The holes were gigantic. Everybody was going to feast, and I think Dallin was the benefactor of that thing. But let's just slow our roll on any expecting a wider role for him or anything like that. I think he's going to take some time to be there, and I think he does a lot of things good. I'd like to see him do some great things, and he's young, and running backs sometimes take a little bit of time to develop. But 100 yards for any running back at any time at Ohio State is great, and I congratulate him on that accomplishment.
Yeah, and I agree. And there was a point in time where people thought Master Teague was going to be the next great Ohio State back. I know that you were never sold on that. You've had a very astute eye of diagnosing running backs. You were he put up some really, really gaudy numbers in 19, even 20. You know, he was a starter, started in the national championship game, you know, after or he played after Trey Sermon got hurt on, you know, the first drive. But yeah, I kind of feel that way. I think there's a reason why they really wanted Richard Young, and they really wanted, you know, they got Q Fletcher coming in, and I mean, they wanted to take two tailbacks in this class, and I think it's because they need that factor back, that first round, that Trey Henderson type, that J.K. Dobbins type, and Dallin could be that, but I'm not sure if he is yet. And yeah, there's always going to be a fresh new guy coming in who's a 5-star freshman who's ready to take that spot. So it'll be really interesting to see how Dallin develops. Your fourth uncomfortable truth: Jim Knowles' defense is going to be frustrating to watch at times. Talk about that a little bit. I think Bill Green agreed with you completely on that one, where he said, I mean, Toledo did some really good things on offense against us, and I mean, they don't have the horses to hold up, but they scored more points than Notre Dame did, and I think that there's ways to beat that scheme, just like you can beat any scheme. But talk a little bit about your fourth point of Jim Knowles and his defense being frustrating to watch.
It's a fundamental change for the Ohio State defense, and Ohio State fans have to understand this. This is a defense that's designed to generate negative plays, and the way that you stop offenses in the modern era is negative plays, tackles for losses, sacks, mistakes, penalties, things of that nature. And it's also designed to try to prevent the 11 play, 70-yard, 9.5-minute drives that just take your offense off the field and just kill you. Knowles' defense is designed to either get the other team off the field, generate a turnover, generate a negative play, get a punt, or give up a score. And, Ohio State is not afraid to trade scores, and that's what the fans have to understand up the Knowles defense when they're watching it. That's what this is generated to do. And it's not a suffocating defense in the mode of the Haycock defenses that would bend and not break and kind of play you down to the 20 and then stop you and hold you to a field goal and do that. That's not how this is designed. This is designed to generate action, to force you into doing things that you don't want to do, to force you to try to go for those big shots, try those trick plays. Knowles is a big fan of the military, and he says, the way the military you win is by forcing the other guy to do things that he's not comfortable doing. And that's what the Knowles defense is set up doing. For Ohio State fans, they're going to have to get comfortable embracing this new type of defensive philosophy because it's different than anything that we've had here before.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be fascinating to see how Jim Knowles works to defend Wisconsin's. They're running a game. There are a lot of two tight ends, tight end and a fullback, stuff that it's just stuff that I used to run when I played for Jim Tressel, and that stuff has completely gone by the wayside in the face of modern offense, where it's mostly 85% of the time with three receivers. And I think we're probably on the opposite end of the spectrum, where we run a lot of two tight end stuff, but it's just a different world now in college football than what Wisconsin does, and it'll be very interesting to see how Jim Knowles defends that, given his background in the Big 12. And the last few years he hasn't really seen a team like Wisconsin, so it's going to be a fascinating thing to see if we see more three linebackers, if we see bear defense. What does he do to stop that massive offensive line and get them out of their comfort zone of running power and counter and zone and the things that they've done for 30 years, since Barry Alvarez ran the show there. Number 5, this is a great one. We pulled the guards more versus Toledo than we had in years. So talk a little bit about that, Nevada. That was a nugget that you had during training camp that has come to fruition, like a lot of your nuggets do. And that was a really an interesting one compared to last year, where we very rarely pulled guards. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, Justin Fry came in and he talked about implementing some of his changes in the running game and his power concepts, and the one of the core tenets of his running game approach is pulling the guards and the numerical mismatches that it gives you. And I think we did that more against Toledo than I've seen in a very, very long time at Ohio State. And it was just, what was fun about it, it was just seeing how a change is being implemented, something that is so basic and so fundamental for Ohio State football, the running game. But we don't really pull the guards much, but we're pulling them this year. And I think for Justin Fry, it shows his impact on the running game. It shows his impact as a running game coordinator and what he wants to do. And I think for Ohio State fans, you should expect to see more of that into the rest of the season. And I think it's something that Ohio State's going to use to great effect here, and it could be one of the keys to our running game success and ultimately our national championship team success. So I think that was uncomfortable truth number 5 was get ready for more point guards this season.
Yeah, I love it. So we not only do we pull them in the running game the traditional way, but we pull them in pass pro. It's like there's some protections that Urban Meyer used to love running that would pull guards because you really get a really good play action. He would call it like you know suck the safeties down into the box, get the safeties to bite, and you get that a pull guard to any defensive player means run. But you know when you turn that into a play action pass, it's really good. I mean, it's great bait to get those secondary guys to bite. Your sixth one is one that I think would be universally agreed upon among the Ohio State fan base. Our corners are a little bit scary at this point. Talk a little bit about the corner play and why that's one of your uncomfortable truths.
Yeah, I think I'd probably change it from a little bit scary to a lot scary. I mean, our cornerback, we don't have alphas at the cornerback spot right now, and that's concerning. It's concerning because that was a position that you really hoped that Kerry Collins, when he left here, was going to leave us with some terrific cornerback depth. We're lacking both depth and quality at the cornerback position right now, and luckily we haven't played a team yet. And we're probably not going to play a team for a while that's got an elite passing attack. But right now, our cornerback situation's a little bit scary, and I think we're gonna have to run some defenses that kind of protect us on the corners, and I think it's going to start with pressure. Pressure always will help out your cornerbacks because the quarterbacks don't have as long to throw. But I'm a little concerned. Uncomfortable truth number 6 for me is our cornerback situation at Ohio State's not where we want it to be. It's not where it should be, and it's a little scary. And frankly, it's our biggest Achilles heel. As far as I'm concerned, as we pursue that national championship. And I hope it gets better. I think it can get better, but it's got to get better.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that's a position that we thought we had high hopes for with Denzel Burke, and we had Jordan Hancock coming on, J.K. Cam. We had some guys that we really thought would take that step, and Denzel's been as disappointing of a player as there is on the team at this point. And again, you're right because we haven't seen a team that could really exploit it, or a team that we would really be scared to death to see. Like we haven't seen like a 2019 LSU or an Alabama that has Tua and Jerry Jeudy, or there isn't a team really out there that's like that. I think that Alabama is really down, especially in the wide receiver room. Obviously, Heisman returning guy at quarterback. I'm not really scared of Georgia's throwing game, but the teams that we can see down the line, there isn't really that insanely talented passing attack like you've seen in the last few years at certain positions. But that'll be something to watch. I think that part of it is confidence. I think I just don't see the confidence in Denzel. And confidence is something that players got to go out and they got to go get that on their own. Like a coach can't tell you, hey, you're going to be good today. You gotta work at it. You gotta build it. And I think when you're getting dunked on and you're getting pulled out of the game, that kind of stuff, that can really affect these guys' morale. And they gotta get back to work and grind and get that confidence back, because it's something that can be really fleeting, and this town will turn on you really quickly if you string together some rough performances like some of these guys have. Your 7th uncomfortable truth is something I completely agree on. Ryan Day clearly has a pulse on this team. You mentioned them going best on best last week at practice, really cranking it up. Talk a little bit about that. I couldn't agree more. I think that was something that was needed. I think that the result of that Toledo game, I think Toledo was a better team than Arkansas State, and we beat them even more ferociously than we did Arkansas State. So talk a little bit about the best on best and Ryan Day having a pulse on the team.
Well, I think that's what you're looking for with your coaches. And it's been readily apparent throughout the years with teams that sometimes coaches don't know or don't have a good pulse on their team, or they go to the whip sometimes. The team doesn't respond, and you look at coaches that kind of around the college football landscape that kind of lose their teams, that don't get up for games or don't stop listening. Last year, frankly, we had a defense on the entire side of the ball that stopped listening to the defensive coaches, and that's why there had to be wholesale changes on that side. And I think this year, Ryan's got a really good handle on this team. And, he knew what buttons to push. And when he was pushing, I was looking to see what kind of response would he get from them in that game against Toledo. They had every reason to kind of sleepwalk through that game, get ready for Wisconsin, another kind of a wonky Saturday night game. When I heard he was going best on best, when I heard he was going number one offense versus number one defense and really challenging the guys, we talked about a pregame. I'm like, I am looking for a big effort. I think this is going to be a big one for Ohio State. And they roll out with 77 points, most points since 1950. I think it shows that Ryan Day's got a great pulse on the team. He knows what buttons to push, and that is as much an art as anything else for college coaches. And it's one of the reasons why I'm so comfortable with Ryan Day having his being the head guy at Ohio State, because he's got a finger on the pulse of this team, and I think he's going to have him jacked up for Wisconsin. And then we'll see how it kind of goes the rest of the season. But I thought that was a very encouraging sign. And I'm comfortable too with number 7. Ryan Day definitely knows his 2022 Buckeyes.
Yeah, I love that. I completely agree. I think going best on best is a great way to wake the team up and say, hey, guys, we're going back to training camp. Sharpen your swords. Let's get it. Because I've been there. I've gotten ready for MAC opponents. You think it's going to be a sleepwalker, and all of a sudden you show up and look at the practice schedule. It says best on best. And you're like, oh, God, here we go. It's wartime. So I love that. So we are into the second drive of the game, and I just wanted to highlight a couple things real quick before we let this thing go. So this was I love this. This doesn't seem like much, but the window dressing here. So you get your 3x1. You got Jackson Smith and Jigba. He is in the slot where his it's where he makes his living, basically. Does a fantastic job. But pre-snap they motion him, and then at the snap, you still have Jackson going this way. You have the O-line full zone this way. You have Cade coming back this way, running back this way. And all of that window dressing literally is just so you have eyeballs looking over here, kind of peeking in the backfield a little bit. It's just also you can throw a hitch to Marvin Harrison. Now, do you need to do all that? No. But when you do it, it draws people's eyes away. Look at the attention that it draws when you see Mayan, you run that fake to Mayan, pull it right away. You got Cade, knocking down the jumper who's trying to deflect the pass. And it's all just to get Marvin a little bit more space. Nice, easy play, nice, easy first down. I love that kind of this kind of design is really, really tough to go against, because again, the next time the play off this is hand it to Mayan, and then all of a sudden you're going to have guys scrambling, chasing after him. But Nevada, what do you think about this? I think this is great stuff to put on tape to get ready for Wisconsin. But give me your thoughts on this play. I'm going to run it back one more time at full speed. And what are your thoughts on some of this design by Ryan Day and Kevin Wilson?
Well, again, it's something. I'll go back to a point that you made earlier in the thing, which I thought was really, really an underrated point and a great point. Is people have to understand that most of the advanced defensive players are taking their keys off watching the guards. They're watching to see what the guards do to kind of keep pass or run, what direction the play is going. So you talk to a Ray Lewis and ask him what he's not looking at the quarterback. He's not looking at the running back. He's watching the guards. So when the guards are pulling or heading in a direction, that necessarily pulls the flow that way. And like you said, a simple hitch to Marvin, he almost housed it. He almost broke that thing, and if he maintains his balance, he's gone for a touchdown. So I think stuff like this, it's really kind of spy versus spy, chess versus checkers type of move. But I love active guards and pulling the guards in the passing game as well as the running game, because like you said, it just messes with the defense's heads because they're not sure what's coming next. And I think it's a good part of the confusion that the Toledo defense experienced against Ohio State. They just weren't sure what was coming.
Yeah, and so then, how do you build off of that? That's something that I think Ryan Day does. Ryan Day and Kevin Wilson are just absolute magicians when it comes to building off of what they just did. So, if you're looking from, 1,000 miles away at this exact formation, you're like, okay, they're running the same formation. They flip it. They put the X wide receiver up to the top, the single receiver up to the top, and they put, the slot, and then they put, the Z down to the short side of the field. So, this is still Marvin, and this is still Emeka, but the two guys that switch are this guy and this guy. This is Mayan Williams at the slot wide receiver. This is Jackson Smith and Jigba, number 11, at running back. So why do you do that? Well, for one, if Jackson Smith and Jigba lines up at running back, these guys are all going to be alerting, hey, we've got a receiver at running back. watch a flare pass, watch something, some sort of design to get him the ball because he's not normally running back. And then Mayan as the slot is something you just never see because you don't see like a big bruising running back lineup as a slot wide receiver. That's Jackson Smith. So something's up. So you see another motion coming across, and this is just the little the old traditional read play where he just hands it off, or like Geno Smith used to just kind of pat the ball and it counts as the pass. This counts as a handoff here because he literally just hands him the ball. But you're running a jet sweep with your big running back, and again, Jackson does just enough. Jackson's actually a pretty good blocker, despite having the injury. He just kind of gets in the way here. You get the full reach, the full zone by the line. You got DeWand. DeWand's jumping this outside end because, like, here's the beauty of when you run zone blocking on these RPOs is the linemen, if you're gonna actually throw it in the RPO, they're only going to be about a foot downfield. So you're not going to get called for a procedure where you've got, one of the guys way downfield blocking into the second level, because generally they're mucked up in here. Here they're telling DeWand, hey, if he pulls this, you need to stay on this guy and keep his hands down. Keep this defensive end's hands down because, what's Marvin running? Marvin, I mean, this obviously is not a read because Marvin isn't coming off the ball. But if it was a read, Marvin could be running that same hitch that he ran the previous play. And right here, you could have CJ sprinting out and just chucking him the ball with plenty of cushion and all this action going this way. So again, you'd have safety over here. Marvin's got to make one guy miss. That's a touchdown. So again, this is like this. The thing I love about Ryan Day's offense and the stuff that he's doing with Kevin Wilson is this is so hard to defend. This is so hard to teach your DBs, hey, this is what you're reading. These are the keys you're reading. And then the keys all change, and it looks like it's the same formation, but then you switch Mayan and Jackson Smith and Jigba, and you give Mayan a full head of steam running a sweep. Like, that's miserable to go against, and that's why I love what these guys do. It looks like we got Mitch in the game here. Yeah, so here they do a quick sub, and again the whole time they're going fast. So now you've got Mitch Rossi in the game. So you get I believe, I don't know who the bottom receiver is because he's off the screen, but one of the receivers came off and Mitch Rossi came on, and you can put Mitch kind of at this wing here. You got, or unless, is that, who's at the top? Yeah, that's Cade. So you got Cade up at the top at tight end. So you got your double tight end. Look here. There's another receiver somewhere. So I'm guessing he's probably down here. And he's off the screen, but you've got your, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So someone is off the screen, and I'm guessing it's down at the bottom. But yeah, again, this is going fast. This wasn't blocked up as well as you'd like, but this stuff is hard to adjust to substitute to. Yeah, it's got to be someone. Yeah, okay. Here's the other receiver. You can't see him; he's covered up by the scoreboard. But yeah, Nevada. Just your thoughts on this play design. We'll wrap this thing up after about one more play, but. Your thoughts on what Ryan and Kevin Wilson are doing to opposing defenses?
Well, again, I used to remember when we played against Kevin Wilson when he was at Indiana, and he used to just confound us with teams that didn't have a single player on the team that Ohio State recruited or would have recruited or would have taken. And yeah, I don't know if he ever beat us. He might have. I don't know if he ever did, but he gave us some games, and they could always score. So, I've always thought he was one of the great play callers. Ryan Day is one of the great play callers. So to have that kind of a brain trust, calling plays, designing plays, sequencing plays for Ohio State is really a blessing. And for Ohio State fans, you just have to sit back and enjoy it because, it's not always going to be this good. We're not always going to have a Ryan Day and a Kevin Wilson here is your offensive coordinator and your head coach. It's about as good as it gets from an offensive standpoint. And these games are just a pleasure to watch because, everything's done with a purpose. Everything's done to kind of set up something else down the road. And it's, 77 points. Like I said, that speaks for itself. I don't care who you're playing. 77 points is an awful lot of points and really a tribute to the great offensive minds we have on the staff.
Yeah, and this is a play where I would have DeWand down in a 3-point. I'd have PJ. If they're covered up by tight ends, if there's a tight end wing, I'd put him down in a 3-point. I think it would help the run blocking here. The guy that can't get his block because of the penetration is Matt Jones. So here, This is just a simple seal by Luke. Doesn't need to get any type of movement. Just gotta hang in there. These two are double teaming up, but in his position, Matt can just get a finger on him, but Matt's got a knife through and get up to this backside linebacker, because this is the old counterplay. We ran this in the Rose Bowl a couple of times where, Mitch Rossi has the end, and you're pulling your guard and kicking, and then PJ is pulling up and walling. So imagine, if this is blocked correctly, you take this guy out of the picture right here, because this is the guy that Matt Jones needs to be getting. So if you take him out of the photo and you've got your tight end here, fake blocks the end. He influences him and works up to the second level. So when he does this little fake right here, it looks like he's going to block him, and the guy swims inside. That is perfect for Donovan Jackson to kick him out, make a gigantic hole, and then you have PJ walling up inside. And here, again, Matt is the guy where it gets all mucked up here and he can't get up to this guy. But if Matt gets there, everything's blocked perfectly. You've got Mitch Rossi here, and you have Mayan versus this guy. So, I mean, he's getting at least 10 yards, at least. And, if this guy, again, if this guy's out of the hole and Mayan can hit it with full steam, he could split it easy, because there's only one safety there. And if that guy doesn't make the play, and this guy's out of the play, this guy's not going to be fast enough to catch Mayan at full speed, or Trey, who's even quicker than Mayan. But yeah, so, well, I'm going to wrap this thing. This has been another great one. As always, we appreciate you guys for jumping on here with us. Again, this is a fantastic episode. Just breaking down some film. I know that you guys have a lot of questions sometimes. You guys really enjoy learning about the game, about some of the nuanced things that it's hard to see, honestly, in real time. Which is why I generally, I'll give some high-level thoughts after the game, but I like to rewatch the game so I can really give you guys some good insight into what Ryan Day, Kevin Wilson, Jim Knowles, Larry Johnson, into what they're doing schematically, because I think that you guys really like to enjoy learning the game, learning some little things that I try to keep it real simple, make you guys better football fans, smarter football fans. And again, as always, I love the feedback in the comments when you guys say, thank you so much. That was a great episode. Love learning some stuff and keeping it simple, because I'm just trying to, again, make it fun and easy for you guys to learn a little bit of football and learn why we do the things we do. So as always, we appreciate you guys. Leave us a like, comment. What do you think of the uncomfortable truths? Give me your uncomfortable truths. Shout out where you're from too. I love that. I'm doing that every episode now, man. I want to hear where are you guys from, where are you guys listening from. Those things are always amazing when we see people from all over the globe enjoying Buckeye Scoop and the Scoop World Order. So I appreciate you guys as always. If you guys want to be a part of the best online community in existence, join BuckeyeScoop.com. BuckeyeScoop.com. We are growing like crazy. It's always a blast. Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football, Friday night games, Saturday all day football, Sunday all day football, the off season, the draft. We're always grinding on the Scoop. It's always a blast in there. Would love for you to join our community. Give it a shot. You'll probably love it. That being said, as always, thank you guys so much. Thank you, Buckeye Nation, and thank you, Scoop family. I appreciate you guys as always. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. You guys have a great rest of your day. Go Bucks.